What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. Today, I'm seated next to John Linford. At his core, he's a lifelong learner. He has read more than 100 books a year for the past 5 years, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. I'm a reader and I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, but holy cow, for the past 5 years, 100 different books is crazy. So we will be talking about that today in today's episode. John also thrives on building connections through networking. He has a passion for learning naturally and that extends into entrepreneurship. He's the co-founder of Deckability, an agency that helps businesses communicate more effectively through brand storytelling and pitch or sales decks. In less than 2 years, he grew the agency to the point of preparing for a sale. John now serves as head of product at a stealth mode mental health startup. Outside of work, John enjoys running, playing soccer and tennis, lifting weights, cooking, and writing poetry, which I'd be curious your thoughts on the age of AI poetry going on right now. But yeah, in today's episode, we're going to be talking to John about his background in entrepreneurship, starting Deckability, and then also his role at the new stealth startup, kind of his background, getting into entrepreneurship straight out of college and diving into his story a little bit. So John, with that being said, let's jump into today's episode. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
It's always nice when I can record in person. Obviously not every single guest we have here on the show is going to be here in the local Utah ecosystem, but it's always nice when we can meet up in person and actually sit down in the studio and record. I think it just has somewhat of a better effect. We're actually having a conversation rather
different
than
vibe for sure.
It totally is. It's in the age of we do 50 plus Zoom meetings every couple of days here at interval. So it feels good to actually have a live connection every once in a while.
There's something about the natural pauses and ebb and flow of a conversation that happens when you're in person that you automatically can't get when you're over digital, because you'll have choppy Wi-Fi or something will happen. So yeah, I agree. This is great.
Oh yeah, and then the awkward conversations where the Wi-Fi does cut out every couple seconds, and you're piecing together like a puzzle. What on earth is even being said? So sometimes people think it's a weird concept nowadays, ever since COVID. But a lot of times when we have a local client or meeting that I can go to in person, even if it extends like 30 minutes or an hour of drive time, like I still much rather prefer going in person. Of course, there's the quick conversations you can do on the phone and stuff, but I don't know. I think in the age that we live in, any kind of in-person contact is going to be a little bit better if you have the opportunity, of course. Yeah. So anyways, thanks for coming to the studio so we can record today. To start out, I want to hear a little bit about your background, what your journey of entrepreneurship was growing up. Did you have entrepreneurs in your family? What got you interested in it? Where did you actually learn the term entrepreneurship?
I don't know. Like, I've actually thought about this a lot of times, and I don't know if I was one of those kids who was destined to be an entrepreneur. Like, I wasn't, hawking silly bands or pencils when I was a little kid. I wasn't trying to start side hustle businesses. Like, I raked leaves and I did things like that. But I've described my entrepreneurship journey as more of a process of cracking my brain, where as a kid raking leaves, it's like, wait, you're gonna pay me $7 for a bag of leaves? That's so cool. And then I worked as a server at a restaurant, and I was like, oh man, I can make several $100s in a single night. Like, that's crazy. And then I did, following my mission for the Church of Jesus Christ, I did 2 summers of door-to-door sales. Like, oh, I can make several $1,000s in a day. And then I worked for a pitch deck firm where it was like, 15 grand for a single project. Oh, like I think it's just, that's more been the process, and it has been centered around money in a lot of ways, which is, kind of funny to say out loud. Of it really has been a money thing of, oh, I have leverage. I think is really what the change has been, that instead of following just an hourly path, I've recognized that I can get outsized results for my effort, depending on the leverage that I apply. And so I think that's more been the process. And I think through that, because of the people that I was interacting with, I just learned more and more about entrepreneurship, about starting and owning businesses, what it meant to own something, and how you're able to create leverage out of that. So that's probably where it came from. But yeah. I don't know. I wasn't the kid that you would have expected to
go and build their own,
to go and be full-time in their own businesses.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I feel like I get two sides of the coin when I have somebody here on the podcast. It is the group that, you know, was slinging the pencils or the water bottles at school. I definitely fit into that category. I feel like when I was younger, I was always a kid looking for the next thing to sell on the playground. It wasn't going out for lunch or recess to go enjoy it. It was, I'm gonna go try and sell something, which is so funny. I don't know where that necessarily even came from. It's always been me. But then you have the other side who's a lot more methodical behind their process. It's like, all right, it was one career advancement, even though you're very early on in your career still, it's one career advancement after another that actually kind of shapes your foundation. And I think the two sides, there isn't a right or wrong answer between the two of them. But it is funny because we all end up eventually on this path of entrepreneurship, which I wish I had this in here. Just the other day, I was talking with somebody and they handed me a note card and they said, this is entrepreneurship. And at the very top of this note card, it's this interweaving circles and shapes all going craziness, but it's all connected. And what they told me is they said, look, this logo is the perfect example of entrepreneurship because everything is madness. There's no order. There's no symmetry. It's pure chaos. But at the end of the day, everything connects. And if you do entrepreneurship correctly, that's how it should be. It's chaos. But if you look on the long scale term of it, there is order. There's just order in the chaos.
Right.
So how have you seen that in your founding of Deckability as a young founder yourself?
I think methodical is a good word for it. And there are a few things that go along with that where, because I've read the aforementioned books, I feel like I've read every book under the sun. I had a lot of theoretical knowledge. And then being able to join up with my co-founders who are both considerably older than I am. My co-founders are 10 and 15 years older than me. And one of them has been part of a bunch of things that haven't worked. One of them has been part of a bunch of things that have worked. And so there's a ton of life lessons, ton of business lessons that have been learned on both sides. And so being able to take both of those and move forward into our business without making some of the early mistakes that most early businesses do, I think has really helped. And we were really thoughtful about when we jumped ship, when we went full time. We did it in stages. We did it kind of one at a time when our financial circumstances allowed. And so very methodical in that way. And so it hasn't been this like fly by the seat of your pants, risky, unproven, untested hypothesis that you're just full sending on. It really has been, we've let the market validate our business model, validate the pain that we're solving, and then we've kind of gone all in and poured gas on the fire. And as a stats guy, like that's my background, is in data and is in statistics. That's what I studied in school. And that appeals to me because when you look at the statistics of who ends up being most successful, you have all the stats about 9 out of 10 businesses are dead by the time you hit 5 years, right? You hit the 5-year mark, which is very sobering. That drops pretty significantly the death rate for those who kept up their full-time job until they can make the transition financially securely. Then there's a little bit better odds of survival in that way. So I had all that in mind. We had all that in mind as we were going through the process of slowly ramping up Deckability to become our full-time.
I'm curious if you know the stats behind this. You obviously are a stats background. That's what you studied in college. Do you know any of the statistics behind businesses that are doing this moonlight approach where they're working a full-time job during the day and then at night is when they're working on the startup? Do you have any idea on what the success rate of those are compared to somebody who dives just full-time, all in off the get-go?
The failure rate drops from about 90% to 60 or 70%. So it's actually a pretty significant dip in the death rate.
Which is actually hilarious because if you look at it just from an external perspective, you go, there's still a 70% chance that this thing sucks. But compared to the 90, that's night and day difference.
Well, and two, it's just not as glamorous. Like everyone loves to talk about the story of the people who went all in and put a second mortgage on their house. I mean, in my opinion, all you're doing really at that point is just creating a lot of stress. And yes, you need to be, you have high, what's the word I'm looking for? You need to have high expectation of success, like high belief. And so that is typically manifested and represented in the way that you just full send it. And investors like to see that. They like to see that you're all in. But a lot of that is just emotion, that if you can take some of the emotion out and look at it really practically, you're able to end up with more success as a result.
I recently had a conversation and I took this as a sign of pride. Maybe I'm an idiot for this, but I took it as a sign of pride. I was talking to somebody who does not come from an entrepreneurial background whatsoever. And when I was explaining the story of where Interval's at this point in time and kind of what our next goals are and stuff, he's just shaking his head. He goes, "You are like the most naive person I've ever met in my life." And as a founder myself,
That's a nice thing to say.
exactly. Like I think, and I don't think it was ill intention. This is a close friend of mine. I think he was just kind of saying it how he saw it. At the time, I was like, "Wow, that's kind of harsh." And now, as I've sat back, I go, "That's maybe one of the best compliments I've ever been given." I think every entrepreneur needs this sense of naive ability, where it's almost naive to the point of confidence,
Right.
where you have to go in and wholeheartedly believe whatever you're working on. You have the conviction, you have the all in drive, you full heartedly believe it is going to work, and there's nothing on earth that could ever stop you. And of course, there's a million things that are going to stop you. And as you mentioned, there's the 90% chance it's going to fail. But if you ask any legitimate entrepreneur to if you just look at them in their eyes and say, "Is your business going to succeed?" If they're a legitimate entrepreneur, they're going to look at you without a doubt in their mind and go, "Heck yeah, it is. Why would you ever think anything else?"
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have any of those words as you've been working on Deckability, or since you came from more of a statistical background, do you feel like you had more of an edge?
We've had no worries about our ability. Like, I think if that's what defines a true entrepreneur, then we've been true entrepreneurs for sure. But a lot of that confidence has come from validation in the marketplace. And so that has felt really good that in fact, we wanted to be just like a little lifestyle business, do a few mil a year between the three of us, but not anything super crazy. And the market has shown us that there is a much bigger pain that needs to be solved, that we weren't able to just stay at the spot that we were. And so that led to a lot of existential decisions and led me to actually where I'm at now, was because of this crossroads that we came of, do we want to be a full agency and go hire 50 people, or do we need to go accept, it was an offer from one of our retainer clients to go full time and then build out a kind of a secondary team to take on the workload. And so that's what we opted to do. But it was gratifying to have that come from the market, as opposed to us just putting our belief out there saying this will work, it has to work.
It's always a satisfying feeling when both options are good options and your back isn't against the wall, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So you guys opted in. You did all three of the co-founders go and join this stealth startup.
Yep.
Cool. I want to jump into stealth startup for a minute. I have a very interesting opinion, and I don't think it's a crazy opinion either. Nowadays, and we don't have to dive into the weeds because obviously that's the founder's perspective on why they want to stay stealth. But what's your opinion on stealth startups as a whole? And I'll give you my perspective real quick. It's interesting nowadays. I feel like a stealth startup, the benefits of it are, if there's other players in the space, it's easy to kind of go in and see what they're doing and see like the cracks in it. But then after that, once you actually make your presence known, it's all right. Now we have kind of the same landscape as everyone else. It's way too easy to get information about competitors this day and age. So that's my opinion on stealth startups. I'm curious yours, since you actually work at one.
My opinion on stealth startups is you have to really know what your distribution strategy is, because in this day and age, we all have businesses that are more or less copies of each other with slight tweaks and slight improvements. And so it really does come down to distribution channels. And that's just kind of my fundamental belief, that your brand needs to be better, your communication needs to be better, your reach needs to be better in order to win, because the incremental improvements between you and your competitors are enough for like total market dominance and that sort of thing. And so with this mental health startup that I'm a part of, there's two factors. One, we're not worried about distribution because we have excessive confidence about our ability to, whenever we decide to go to market, we're going to be able to get downloads for our app. We're going to be able to get people in there because that is our talent, and we have a track record of doing that consistently. The other piece is that we are self-funded by the co-founders. And so there's no need for any external approval. We don't need to be posturing towards VCs or towards family offices. There's nothing there that we need from the outside world. And so instead, we're focusing in on having good testing and having people, like, we're going through clinical trials on all the mental health pieces the interventions that we're working on. And that's all we need in terms of feedback, where we don't need market validation and market feedback right
Because
now.
the product's actually working.
Because we know the product can actually work in the trials and in our alpha testing, and then we don't need it for money or for clout. And so it's just been a preference and a choice from the founders.
Where do you think stealth startups typically go wrong?
I think they go wrong thinking that everyone's going to be excited about it because they're in an echo chamber. I think that it's really easy to get in an echo chamber and hype up your team and feel like you're working on this really important thing, but then you get out there and no one actually cares. And so we're being very thoughtful about how we're going to go to market and how we're going to do initial customer acquisition, and all that I think is keeping us, saving us from those inevitable issues that come from stealth. But it is nice to not have the external pressure of deadlines or anything like that. Like, we have internal deadlines that we've set of getting our MVP out the door and getting to market, but we also want to make sure that it's good getting there. And so it takes some of the pressure off in that way.
Oh, it totally does. It's an interesting concept in my opinion, because you have this entire group, like you said, a lot of these stealth startups that I've seen, once they actually come out of stealth, they were in this echo chamber, the term that you use. They built around their team, hyped each other up, and every single day they thought no one is ever going to be able to defeat us. But then the number one thing that they always lacked is, all right, since we didn't get this in front of our customers because we are building in stealth, we don't actually know exactly how they want us to build. So if you could do it alongside your customers, like you guys are doing with the clinical trials and actually putting it in the hands of people still, and keeping it on the low, but if you can still interact with your customers, I think that's what makes or breaks a business. If you build something that your customers actually want, awesome, you have a business.
Yeah.
If you build something that nobody wants, you're dead in the water yesterday.
Yep. That is, by bar none, the most important lesson that I learned from my entrepreneurship journey and from helping a lot of people. Like, I've been able to teach at a lot of universities about brand storytelling and deck building, and so, and I'm advisor at Sandbox, and there's a bunch of places where I'm trying to give back and trying to impart the few lessons I have, but still, like, I'm a few steps beyond. Made real revenue, I've made the transition to being full-time, and so I have things to share with younger entrepreneurs. And that is one thing that we talk about a lot, is just like the tight iteration cycles with customers. So there's almost nothing more important than building something that people actually want, because you can slap lipstick on your pig as much as you want, but if people don't just want what you have, you are destined to fail. And actually, I think that's where most of the 90% comes from. Is, there's co-founder issues, there's money issues or financial mismanagement, those sorts of things. But I think fundamentally it's because people didn't iterate enough to build something that people actually needed and actually solved pain. And they they didn't get over themselves. They didn't get out of their own way.
I appreciate that plug for
exactly. Like, but literally, it's like they didn't get over themselves to get out of their own way to actually build something that people needed. And so that's why they ended up failing, because the market punishes them for it.
Well, I mean, especially here in Utah has such a great atmosphere of knowing how to sell a product. Utah is like the king of like the selling ice to an Eskimo, right?
Yeah.
Facilitates in the form of entrepreneurship into a business. Yes, you can go and create any kind of company and go find an early 5 customers. I'm a wholehearted believer that if you have a good enough sales pitch, you can go and sell any crappy product to somebody.
100%.
Ethically speaking, that's a different conversation, but just in general practice, you can go and sell whatever you possibly want. But the issue is, if you focus solely on the sales side and then you never actually pay attention to the product side and how much are your customers churning, are they coming back to purchase again, depending on your company, that's the metrics that actually matter. You can go and sell the product one time 1,000 times over because you're a good salesman, but are the customers actually getting pulled to come back? Did they enjoy their experience? Did they enjoy the product the first time?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, that's usually when you need to take a hard look in the mirror and say, all right, something's off here.
This goes to a lot of beliefs that we have at Deckability that we impart to our clients, is that we fundamentally believe that sales is not about convincing. It's about fit. And if you have the right fit of the right solution for the right pain, then it's just about finding the right people and getting in the room with them.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
That's
awesome.
It's not a sales pitch. You're not trying to convince them to do anything. And the other fundamental belief we have is that people don't purchase products, they purchase outcomes. And so couching it in terms that they can understand that this actually solves my pain and it bridges that emotional gap. That is what sales is all about. Too often sales, and I was in door-to-door, I was in direct-to-consumer sales, And so much of that industry and so many of the kind of the hustle culture industries, they're all about trying to
It's the hard closes, the one-liners.
Yeah, it's all about your outcome. And if you can flip that, I think that's where a lot of the stress goes away, actually. Where for us, people ask me, like, oh, has it been really stressful, really hard to build Deckability? Like, truthfully, no. And it's because we found pain in the marketplace and we're just meeting that pain where it is. And then I have, my LinkedIn that gets us in front of folks, but we've never done any outbound. We built like $2 million worth of pipeline without a single bit of outbound. And it's literally just people coming to us saying, I want help because of the content that they saw, because of the connections that we built.
The referral that somebody made. Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way to build a business, that as soon as you're having to over rely on outbound and like go knock down the doors of people, I think that there's something in there that just doesn't quite feel right to me, where I think that you can do better about having a product that meets their pain better so that they want to come to you.
I love it. I want to hear about your journey. Obviously, you guys are still kind of working on. You're still an owner in some senses. Obviously, Deckability is still going, and you guys are kind of. It's almost like a side portion of your business now.
Yeah, it's back to being a side hustle.
Yeah, it's almost back to the side hustle now, which it's funny you call it that because it's still like a full-time gig in and of itself. But now you're the head of product at this stealth mental health startup. What was the transition like from full ownership, you and two co-founders? It's a two-thirds majority when you guys are making business decisions, to now you have other founders who, as you mentioned, the founders are the ones funding this. I presume these founders are somewhat successful in their own senses. What's it been like kind of pulling back on the reins a little bit, not having full ownership over the business? As a head of product, you still get a decent chunk compared to, employee number 1,000. But what's it been like as you've gone from full-fledged founder, one of three, to a little bit of a larger team, not full complete ownership?
Going and letting go of that, especially the identity piece of I'm not a business owner. Still technically a business owner, right? Like you said, it's Deckability is still alive and well. Folks listening can hit us up if they need picture sales decks. We're open for business. We're helping out plenty of folks still. But yeah, it was a hard emotional transition because there's just something, and maybe it's pride, maybe it's just ego of I own this thing and I control its destiny and I live or die, succeed or fail kind of on my own merits. And so it's been interesting coming in and we're relying now on, especially financially, the goodwill and good graces of this co-founding team. What's been interesting is as we have made the transition, the co-founders have actually taken a step back from day to day. And so within a very short amount of time, we've actually more or less, I don't want to say take over because that sounds hostile. I wasn't hostile at all. But we've essentially taken over the day-to-day and the decision-making. And they're more of I'd call it more of a
advisory role.
Yeah, a very active executive chairman of the board, kind of a vibe, which has been a fun transition back to being in charge of the day-to-day and making the decisions and able to move at the speed that me and my co-founders have fallen into as we have worked together. There's a principle, or there's a framework that we follow. It's called the 6 Types of Working Genius. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I haven't, no.
Highly recommend it for your team. This is Pat Lencioni. It's the same guy who did 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, those sorts of things. Excuse me. And this is one of his lesser known books and frameworks, which I think is crazy because I think by far it is the most valuable thing that he's put out. Essentially, the idea is that in a project you have 6 stages, and you have types of working genius, you have types of working competency, and types of working frustration, and it's 2 of each. And so the idea being that you and a co-founder, for instance, you'll have different skill sets, different things that give you energy at different stages of the project. So for instance, James, my co-founder, his working genius types are wonder and galvanizing. He's the how might we do this thing, coming up with the big brained ideas, being the visionary, and he's the rah go team, let's make this happen. Both of those are actually my working frustration types. Those grind my gears. I do not enjoy that. My working genius types are discernment and tenacity. I'm really good at the, hey, James, that's a really good idea, or hey, that's a really sucky idea, and here's why, and kind of the filter, as it were, of these ideas work and these ideas don't, taking in a lot of data and simplifying it. and the tenacity is the getting things over the finish line. Cole is enablement, so he's the workhorse. He gets things almost there, but he hates the final 10%. I love the final 10%, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, those sorts of things. And so that has been a super helpful framework for us of managing our workload. We've done according to what gives us energy, which means that we're always energized. We're always energized to do the things that we love to do. And between the three of us, we have all 6 working genius types. And so it's just helped to manage that, the inevitable highs and lows of startup land, and
which there's going to be 1,000 of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Every single day there's 1,000 of them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I want to do a quick rapid fire round here. On going back to the thing I read in your bio there, you've read over 100 books a year for the past 5 years.
Yes,
which is incredible. Mad props to you. I'm going to do a quick rapid fire round. I'm going to basically give you a topic, a certain industry of book, and I'd be curious what your top couple are.
Oh, I'm ready.
So this is gonna be off the top of your head.
Fun game.
Yeah, we'll see how let's see how well you do. Let's start with management of people. What's your go-to?
Management of people. Actually, 6 Types of Working Genius.
Okay.
Fabulous book, and just extraordinarily useful.
Let's go with early customer sales. Getting your first few customers.
Getting first customer sales. I like the mom test a lot. That's a really good one.
Building an MVP. Any good books on building an MVP?
I like Sprint, and Lean Startup is a classic in that literature.
Let's go with overall financial literacy. There's a lot of finance books out there. Do you have any favorites? You can name a couple on this one too, because at least for me, that's a hard one to narrow.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton. There's one. There's one that's coming to mind. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I can see the cover. I can't think of the title.
Pull out Audible. Do what you gotta do. No, yeah. Let's jump past that one. Favorite book of all time, excluding business, unless it's a business book. Favorite book of all time.
Oh, that's a hard question. It might have to be The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one. Who's it by?
It's by John Mark Comer. He's a Protestant Christian pastor out of Portland, and it's a Christian book, but it's essentially about how if we want to be better followers of Jesus, we need to figure out ways to eliminate hurry from our lives, because Jesus wasn't hurried, and so it's kind of a modern take on discipleship, and very soul filling in that way. I actually have a lot of books kind of in that vein of becoming in a Christian context that I've really enjoyed. Falling Upwards is another by Richard Rohr. Fabulous book. And then others that have been really impactful for me are ones like Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead.
Yep. I didn't like Speaker for the Dead. It was too slow after Ender's Game.
So I don't know if you know the history of those books, but Speaker for the Dead was actually written first.
Really?
And he came to his publisher and said, I want to do this book. He said, this is too dense. This is too complicated. You need to write something that people can get into.
That's where Ender's Game came from?
That's where Ender's Game came
Interesting.
from.
I did not know that.
No one ever reads Speaker for the Dead because Ender's Game was a smash hit.
Yeah, it was amazing. I love that book. Yeah. But when I got on Speaker for the Dead, I couldn't get behind it very much.
I think it's some of his best work, or Card's best work. He has such a knack for understanding how humans are motivated.
Let me ask you this. Best book for a startup founder, in your opinion, just overall, like if you could read 1 or 2 books on startup founding concepts, what would it be?
Deep Work, actually.
Okay.
I think Deep Work is bar none one of the most important principles, especially now where there's so many distractions and it's so easy to get lost in infinite feeds. People are, to the point of reading 100 books a year, people are always like, how do you do that? That's so crazy. And first of all, I don't recommend anyone read 100 books a year. I read 100 books a year because I'm obsessive and I love it, and it's something that's genuinely a passion of mine. I don't think anyone should read 100 books a year, for the record. But they always question, how do you find the time? It's like, if you don't watch movies or shows, if you don't spend time on social media, if you don't play video games, there's a lot of time available. And especially if you're, in my case, I'm filling dead time is what I call it. With running time, gym time, driving time, that's all audiobook time.
Yeah.
Food prep, all those sorts of. So I'm filling a lot of that dead time with reading, and then I just have hours in the day where I can sit down and open up an actual book, because I'm not wasting my time. So that principle of deep work, of creating focused time where you can engage with long form content, I think is critically important for a startup founder because it helps with your long-term thinking and it helps with your risk assessment. And I think you just make better decisions with that kind of a brain. If it's all quick dopamine, then you're running the risk of falling prey to a lot of early traps of entrepreneurship.
I love it. Any other good ones, that a category that I'm missing out there that you'd recommend for young business owners?
I would say Others by Cal Newport. One is So Good They Can't Ignore You. I think Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 is a fabulous primer on just having the right mindset going into traction is another really good one.
What about for brand? I mean, this is your background, brand storytelling and whatnot. Any good books?
One of the best is Microscript Rules.
I don't know that one.
The tagline is, it's not what people hear, it's what they repeat. It's all about getting your message down so concise that people can understand it quickly and easily. One of the best. And anything by Seth Godin. He's kind of the GOAT when it comes to brand marketing and that whole process. So Seth Godin's always a classic.
Cool. Any other last minute books you'd recommend for anyone?
Ooh.
You're listing so many of them. I'm going to have to go and do a tally at the end of this.
Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson's super fun.
These books are so long though. That's my thing, is if I dive into those, it takes months for me to get through some of those books.
I'm a sucker for classical literature as well. Like, I'm a classicist at heart. And so going back and revisiting the Odyssey, a lot of us read it in high school, but it's just so powerful. I love going back that far, but other things like Brothers Karamazov, I love Jane Austen, so Pride and Prejudice. I recently reread Jane Eyre, loved it. Right, there's something about, again, that long form kind of archaic English that makes your brain focus a little bit more.
You have to pay attention in order to know what's going on. Yeah.
I'm a sucker for Nietzsche as well. For Nietzsche, for Heidegger, like there's a lot of philosophers as well, a lot of philosophy that's, I think, really worth reading in our day and age, just because they had a lot of advanced knowledge of what we would go through in the postmodern world. I think it's worth actually the whole other category we haven't talked about, which is, I call it the Mindbender books. Nassim Taleb is my favorite author for that. He's a polymath, economist, mathematician, trader, and he writes a bunch of books, but he talks about the concept of the Lindy effect, which basically means something that has lasted for a certain amount of time. So say Aristotle, he's been around for 2,000 years, 3,000 years. He's going to be around for another 2,000 or 3,000 years. Apple's been around for 50 years. They'll probably be around for another 50. A concept, a company's longevity is defined by its history. And so things that have been around longer are inherently more valuable just because they've literally stood the test of time. And so that's why classics are really important. That's why, kind of those founding principles, virtue ethics, like those things are really worthwhile. But Nassim Taleb has very prescient understanding of how the world works, and he creates mathematical and economical models and articulates them really well and in a really fun way. So I highly recommend his books.
Awesome.
Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, Skin in the Game. I try to read those at least once a year.
That's awesome. So a lot of your books, it sounds like you go back and reread a little bit as well.
A lot of them. I'm always reading new material, but yeah, at the core, like if I read 100 books.
If you're reading 100 books, you got to go back and reread them to understand the concepts and retain them.
Fourth of them, I end up going back and rereading.
That's awesome. So John, as we're closing out today's episode of Get Over Yourself podcast, I want to ask you two final questions. First one, very, very quick version. You're a startup founder. You're trying to create the brand around your company and create that vision, and so you can offer that storytelling experience for both your customers, your team, investors, if you have any. What's your 1 minute advice on how you can get your brand in the right direction?
Ooh, say what you mean to say. So often we're dancing around it. We're throwing lingo, we're throwing buzzwords, all the different things. And my best advice for your brand is say what you actually do and say what you actually mean instead of putting all the fluff around it.
Plain English. This is what we're doing.
Plain English. People want to sound smart and they want it to be complicated, but your audience doesn't want that. Even if they tell you to, they're lying. They're human beings, which means that they have finite attention. They have finite processing power. And the simpler you can make it for their brains, the faster and easier they're going to have the light bulb go on and go, oh, I do actually want to work with you, or I don't want to work with you because I know clearly what you do. So
Yeah, no beating around the bush.
no beating around the bush.
I like that. Final question I have for you today, John. I ask this as the final question on every episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. I started this podcast. We are on 4 years of this show running, which is just absolutely insane. For everyone who's been listening that long, thank you guys so much. You're the reason I continue to make this. At the end of the day, I created the Get Over Yourself podcast with a pretty simple goal in mind. It's how do you take entrepreneurs, business leaders, thought leaders, and kind of boil them down to, great, you are successful in your own rights, you're successful in your business, you're successful in your life in certain forms and fashions. How do you give back to those who have helped you become who you are today? How do you give back to your community, to those around you? Or in other terms, how do you get over yourself and give back to others? What does the term get over yourself mean to you, and how do you apply it into your life, and how will you continue to apply that into your life going forward?
This taps a really fundamental ethos that I have about living, which is don't wait for your life to start. I think a lot of people, they have ideas or dreams about being an entrepreneur, for instance, but it's all talk and they never do something. And so in similar fashion, I imagine myself to be someone who, oh, I'd love to, coach my kids' soccer team someday. I'd love to give back to the community in the ways you're talking about. And my thought has been, well, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait for my life to start or life to reach a certain point before I can do that. So I am coaching a little kid soccer team. It's a U10, 8 and 9-year-old boys, and helping to be a mentor for them. And I alluded to this earlier,
Awesome.
but I've been teaching classes at universities, and it's been so fulfilling for me. And going into places like iHub down in Provo and giving back to accelerators and giving back to the sandbox ecosystem, that I'm trying very hard to, I'm a few steps ahead. Let me help you with those few steps, right? That 0 to 1 in a very modern context where a lot of entrepreneurs have had great advice from me, but I've had my best advice from people just a few steps beyond me because they're in it.
Mm-hmm.
They're in it with me. And
that's the exact reason, to cut you off real quick, that's the exact reason I love running this podcast with somebody who's a young founder. It's because, you can go and listen to, there's plenty of podcasts out there that I love and appreciate. You got the How I Built This, the Diary of a CEO, My First Million. There's all these amazing podcasts of people who have gone out and created, 5, 10, 15 very successful companies. And they have these tenured entrepreneurs on there. My favorite is getting in the weeds with somebody who's, yes, like in some form and fashion, they've made their companies a little bit off the ground, so they're not giving absolute crap advice because they don't know at least the semblance of what's going on. But it's still somebody who's living the journey. And I think that's the key right there. If you ever looking for a mentor, somebody who can go and help you, yes, you can go and have the very, very uber successful people that clearly know what they're talking about. But also, like, it's hard to remember your journey. If I looked at you, John, and said, tell me exactly how you're feeling when you built Deckability a couple of years ago, you would have a lot better of an idea than if you go to some CEO who's been out of the startup hustle for the past 20 years.
Exactly right.
So I love your answers on that. Thank you so much, John, for joining us on today's episode, man.
It's been great.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. Come back next week, as always, for another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. If you want to check out John or any of his information, like Deckability, finding him on LinkedIn or anything like that, as always, it'll be in the episode's description down below. And with that being said, we'll see you guys on next week's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. Awesome. Thank you.